It took over a decade of this cycle of hustle and burnout, until I finally was like, okay, there's got to be a better way to do this. I had run myself ragged. I'd ended up getting sick. I wasn't able then to perform at my top, and that was really frustrating, right? When you're an entrepreneur and you've done all the things to get to where you want to be, and then to have your body fail on you, it's one of those like aha moments where you're like, okay, something has to give. I can't keep doing it this way. And so all of the systems that I teach and use today were born out of burnout.
Hey, sales setters, welcome to season 2 of Beyond the Business Plan, where heart meets hustle and every episode inspires you on your entrepreneurial journey. I'm Lyon, and together we'll chart new courses, tackle challenges, and celebrate those big wins with expert guests, honest stories, and plenty of joy along the way. If you love the show, tap follow, subscribe, leave a quick review, or join our conversation with #JoyMinder, because your support helps us reach and inspire more entrepreneurs. Set sail on your business adventure with Beyond the Business Plan. What if growing your business didn't have to come at the expense of your peace of mind? Today's guest believes success and sustainability can go hand in hand. With over 20 years of experience helping service-based entrepreneurs get organized, build simple systems, and stay consistent, she combines smart business strategy with resilience and mindset tools that keep burnout at bay. Who is the whole person coach helping business owners rise higher, both professionally and personally? Let's find out as I welcome her to the show. Erin, are you there?
Yes, hello.
Hey, Erin, so
Good to
good to
see
have
you.
you here. What did I miss in your intro? What else would you like to tell people about yourself as a whole person entrepreneur?
That it is a learned skill. It is not something that you come out of the gate knowing how to do. And it was developed out of uh, living a crazy life and a crazy hustle. And realizing that, hey, this actually isn't as fulfilling as I thought it would be. And kind of turning it on its head and being like, well, I love being an entrepreneur. I love owning businesses. How do I make this sustainable? How do I make this something I can actually do for the rest of my life? You
Wow.
can't really be in business and not address the whole person. Because as an entrepreneur, you are all in it. All of you, every part of you.
So, so,
So it
so.
doesn't make sense to ignore it.
Well, what's fun is that you and I ran in similar circles for probably a very long time. When I met up with you this fall at an in-person event, I recognized you, but I didn't know you. And we then have developed a closeness, a friendship, I'll even dare to say, where
Yeah,
we've just found a lot of alignment between what we say and how we work. Some people would even say, well, don't you kind of do the same thing? We don't. But because we both work with entrepreneurs, we both have a heart for entrepreneurship. What I love about what you do is it is so different than what I do. And that means that we can come alongside. You can find your right people. I can find my right people. We can cross reference. And it's such a beautiful thing.
agreed. Very much so.
How often do you think that happens?
When I was younger, I felt like those types of connections used to happen a lot.
Mhm.
But now that I'm a little older and a little bit in a different stage of life, I am very discerning about who I choose to be in my circle. So it doesn't happen as often as it used to. So
Ah,
it's very refreshing when it does happen.
well, that's nice to hear. And you've also joined what I do on Monday mornings. You've been part of it a couple times. I have something called Leaders League. If anybody's interested, you can go to joyminder.com/connect. And on there, you find the Leaders League option. It is an open forum. We don't have a requirement for attendance. We do welcome entrepreneurs to come in. And people that I pick are allowed to give small presentations here and there, and other times we just go round robin and help each other out. Now, you recently were a featured speaker in Leaders League, and you gave some amazing tips on how to organize our week. I don't want you to recap that, but You talked about this all being a journey. How long did it take for you to get to having even that process in place?
It took over a decade of what I would consider to be kind of a cycle of hustle and burnout, hustle and burnout, hustle and burnout, until I finally was like, okay, there's got to be a better way to do this. I I had run myself ragged. I'd ended up getting sick. I wasn't able then to perform at my top, and that was really frustrating, right? When you're an entrepreneur and you've done all the things to get to where you want to be, and then to have your body fail on you is one of those like aha moments where you're like, okay, something has to give. I can't keep doing it this way. And so all of the systems that I teach and use today were born out of burnout.
Right. And that's what I talk about a lot is that there's a lot of people who have stepped into careers when they were 20 years old and optimistic. And then they realize when they're 30 or 40, I realized that when I was about 30 that I did not want to stay as a teacher. Other people take longer.
Yeah, I always am a little slow to the draw. I'm consistent and I'm determined. And sometimes that works against me because it's not as easy for me to pivot. So I stayed in that really unfortunate cycle because while I was there, I was making great gains, right? While I was in the hustle part, I was doing great things. I was buying out my competitors. I was starting other companies. I was doing these super fun, great activities from an entrepreneurial perspective,
Yeah.
but I was running myself ragged. And that cycle is oh, it's toxic, right? Because when you're in the good part, when you're in the hustle and the things are happening and you're doing it all, it feels great. You have the adrenaline rush, you're getting this immediate like feedback for the work that you're doing. And
Mm-hmm.
so I felt myself, at least in that decade, kind of like, okay, well, I just need to get back to the hustle. I just need to get back to that flow state, right? I can work through the burnout. But I realized that if you can just avoid the burnout and have consistent growth, as opposed to these big hills and these deep valleys, life is a lot more easy.
I think my husband
Who
would like
knew?
I think my husband would like me to reach that point as well.
It's hard though, because it means I have to say no to a lot of things that I don't always want to say no to.
Right, absolutely. Well, before we jump into a little bit more of your history and how you got to where you are, because that's really, I think, what a lot of people want to hear. I also want to bring up the fact that you have been part of, we're getting ready for a summit as we're recording this. The summit is coming up, and then you're going to be the bonus speaker for the summit. So my summit runs 3 times a year. It's called the Surprise Beyond the Business Plan Summit. That's actually new this time. It used to have a different name. I've been running it since 2020. And the point is to inspire entrepreneurs that need a little push, that need a little inspiration, that need something new and fresh to be able to come in. The attendees, we don't charge for this ticket at this time, even though we've been doing this for years. And it's an opportunity to come in, pay attention. But the 8 speakers that I have during the summit are very business focused. And not that you're not. But what I've invited you to do as the bonus speaker is to really speak to, as we've talked about, the whole person, the beyond the business plan person, for me, the martial artist, for me, the mom, those other types of things. Do you want to speak a little bit more about what we can expect from that talk?
Yeah, so as entrepreneurs, when somebody asks you, what are you about? What do you do? Usually the first thing we say is, oh, we're business owners, we're entrepreneurs. But those aren't the only titles we hold, right? So I'm going to be talking about how do you get all the titles on the same page? How do you be an entrepreneur, but still have a good personal life, still be able to pursue things outside of your company? How do you have hobbies and be an entrepreneur? And why should you have hobbies while you're an entrepreneur, right? I'm going to be talking a lot about why the rest and reset portion of our schedule and our life is so important. And it's something that usually gets tossed to the side because we don't feel like it's productive. We don't feel like it's moving us forward to our goals. But in reality, that's the most important part of your schedule. And so I'm going to be going over why that is and how you can build in some rest and restore into your schedule.
I will say, I have learned several things from you just in the few months that we've known each other. I think our first Zoom call, when we were that first get to know you, we both whipped out our crochet, right?
We
It's
did.
so fun. Like, oh, check this out. And I had the blessing of giving away that blanket recently. And the mom sent me back a picture of her baby laying on the blanket, and it just, oof, you know. No,
Love that.
trust me, anybody listening, I'm not going into the business of crocheting baby blankets or selling baby blankets or crocheting for sale of anything, but I have to have things that I do that I enjoy that I can use as a downtime, and I'm trying to get away from screens. So,
Yes.
yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Screens are They are such a farce because we think it's time for us to relax and zone out. Maybe it's time for us to like go down a rabbit hole or something. But in reality, those are very taxing on our systems and they don't actually let our brain relax, right? What we know, what science tells us is that when you have hobbies, especially hobbies that need your hands, but maybe don't necessarily need all of your brain, those are active resting. So it frees your brain up to be creative and to think about things in a manner that you wouldn't normally. So your hands are busy, like crochet, like painting, like knitting. All of those activities put your brain in a different state and actually allow you to be more creative, to think about things from a different perspective. But we hardly ever leave time for them in our lives. And screens, I will die on a hill on this one. I do believe that the screens are ruining us. They're giving us a false expectation of what we can get out of life. And they are built, all of those platforms, all the social medias, even sometimes the news apps, they are built to hold your attention. So being able to have the wherewithal to say, no, I'm done. These are my 15 minutes. It's very hard. I mean, how many of us have actually gone on to Facebook or Instagram and said, okay, I just want to look at this one thing. And then you look up and it's 25 minutes later. And it's like you didn't even, our time, our acknowledgement of time just gets lost when we are in those apps. And they can be very detrimental, not only to like moving yourself forward, moving your business forward, but to how your brain thinks. They're so overstimulating and in reality, us humans, our brains need time for quiet.
Yeah.
Our brains need time to think. But if we never set the stage and give ourselves the environment to do that, we don't actually do it. So being intentional with hobbies is a great way to calm your brain down, bring down your cortisol, and to maybe think about a problem you're having in a different way.
Yeah. I love that. And social media, I'll just throw it out there. Of course, when you start looking at one thing, that's all you start to see. And for those of us that might have shiny object syndrome or squirrel habits, both of us, yeah, that can become really, really dangerous. I have bought so many things on the spur of the moment and ended up spending sometimes hundreds and sometimes thousands of dollars on programs that ultimately I got nothing out of or I never pursued later. It was a great idea when I was scrolling, and then it was just something I didn't even make time for. So,
Yeah.
that's another discussion and goes back to really the weekly planning that we talked about. So,
Yep.
yes, I'm so excited about what you're going to share again, more in depth when you're doing the presentation. Today, of course, is more of a conversation. That's
Yes.
the kind of the differentiation between the podcast and the summit, but super excited that you've accepted that opportunity.
Yes,
Just
thank
looking
you.
forward to it. So, entrepreneurship for many of us really is kind of in our bones since we were little. I do meet with people sometimes who are like, I had no interest. My parents were entrepreneurs. I was not going to do it. And I want to tell those people, you were doomed. If you had entrepreneurial parents, it's in your genes. It is in your bones.
Mhm.
My children also say, no, I don't want to be a business person. And then I watch them do all the things that entrepreneurs do. And so, what's your story with that?
So I grew up in an environment where both of my parents owned small businesses. But they were very different businesses. My dad owned a insurance adjusting firm, and so he covered all of North Dakota and the northern half of Minnesota, where a lot of insurance companies didn't pay to have employees at the time. And my mom owned a cleaning service down in the metro area, cleaning mostly million-dollar homes on Lake Minnetonka. So two completely different service-based industries being run in two completely different places. This was the benefit of having parents that were divorced, is I got to really experience northern Minnesota and the metro. So I feel like as a Minnesotan, I'm pretty balanced. But growing up with watching them grow their businesses, was amazing. My dad had always owned a small business. My mom hadn't. She'd actually gone to school to be back in the day when you could go to the school to go to school to be a secretary. That's what she did. And she was a legal secretary. And she worked at police departments. And she ended up with carpal tunnel and had to take leave, had to get surgery. And as she was coming back, she was supposed to go back to work. She decided that isn't what she wanted to do. So she went to go clean houses. We're actually third generation like house cleaning providers. My grandma used to clean at Glen Sheen in Duluth. And so it's kind
Oh,
of in her blood. And so my mom decided that that's what she was going to do. So in 1991, she opened a cleaning service. And I watched her build it from like 3 clients to the time when I bought it in 2005 and we had over 160 clients.
wow.
So I watched it all happen and I was intrigued by it. I wanted the freedom, right? Because my mom, yeah, she worked her core hours, but she could really do what she wanted. She owned the business. She wasn't out cleaning houses anymore. And so the freedom that she had in her schedule was what I wanted. And the same thing with my dad, right? He was running businesses, but he would also go down to Mexico every single year, take many weeks, not necessarily off, but kind of, and enjoy himself. And I thought to myself, that's what I want. I don't want a 9 to 5. I don't live well in that rigidity. And so they were both giving me examples and I was learning from them. So in my lifetime, I actually worked for both of them, of course, because if your parent owns a business and you're not working for that business, it's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, my kids worked for me for sure. Absolutely.
Yep.
Anybody
And you,
listening? Erin referenced Glen Sheen. There is a mansion in Duluth, Minnesota called the Glen Sheen Mansion. Was there a fire there this past year or two?
I don't know what's happened there recently. I actually haven't been there
Yeah.
in a
But it
few
was also
years.
known, I mean, it is just very famous and very beautiful, and I have been to it. Most Minnesotans, if you haven't been to Glen Sheen Mansion, you should if you can. It's beautiful. I might be thinking of the ski resort that had a fire.
Yeah, Lutzen
Yeah.
had the fire. Yeah.
But
Glensheen didn't. They're kind of notorious for the murder that happened
oh,
there.
that's right. And therefore, some people say ghosts as well. And my grandmother actually moved to the Twin Cities when she was young and worked as a maid in a home in St. Paul. She was a servant
Yeah.
in a house in St. Paul. That's where she met her husband, who was double her age, and she got married when she was 17. It was such a
Oh,
different
wow.
world for our grandparents. And I know we are not spring chickens, we have young adults of our own. But
We
it's
do.
amazing those entrepreneurial journeys. But my grandmother and her first husband, they opened up a shop. They opened up a small business in the small town where I was born and lived till I was 4. So entrepreneurship definitely runs in my blood as well.
Yeah, my grandmother owned a resort in northern Minnesota, in Hackensack, Minnesota. So
Yeah.
I also was exposed to that. That was a really crazy. The amount of work that my grandmother did to run that resort was actually something that made me take pause because that woman, I've never the amount of work it takes to run a resort, oh my goodness. But man, when they sold the resort and they retired, she missed it, right? Because that was her life, working that much. Like she didn't know what to do with her idle hands. And so
Ooh.
watching my grandma try to pick out a hobby in her early 70s was an interesting thing. She actually ended up picking up studio dancing and would compete all over the nation. She won like trophies. She went to Vegas. Like
Love it.
it was just the best thing ever. But yeah, I mean, the amount of work that went into that, I watched that too, right? So it was almost to the point where I didn't know another path.
Yeah, right. For sure. Back to the idle hands thing, and not that I want to go back to this, but you think about historically, and we crochet, but crocheting, knitting, churning butter. I mean, there was never an idle hand back in the day before the screens, before, I mean, really, I think before screens. I mean, people still didn't have idle hands. Even as children, we were sent outside. We were part of the generation that were
Yes.
sent outside, be back before dark, don't talk to strangers, but we don't care where you go or what you do, and drinking water from the from the not fire hose, the garden hose and all the good stuff that we probably wasn't good stuff, but that's okay.
Yeah, but it made our generation who we are,
I know it
right?
made us
Like I
special.
have several times noted to my kids, go out of the house, go do something because it isn't their norm like it was for us.
No,
Like playing outside and doing things outside, that was so integral to our young lives. And I feel like this next generation kind of missed that. And there's a part of me that mourns that for them because some of my best memories as a kid happened in the backyard of someone else's house.
sure, for sure. So when you went to, did you go to college? I shouldn't presume you went to college. You did not?
I I tried. I sure did. I tried.
Okay.
Um, I went for 2.5 semesters. In that time, I had actually written a story that got published in the college's yearly like book of work, which I thought was cool. But it was hard for me because they stifle your creativity, right? Of course, I always premise this with I was in the beginning where it's just generals and you're supposed to get that stuff done, but it wasn't exciting. I felt it. It felt like prison. And so that's when I was like, okay, I don't need to do what everybody else does. And all of my older brothers had gone through college and gotten degrees, and I'd had long conversations with a couple of them about like, I don't know if this is really for me. And I remember distinctively one of my brothers telling me, then don't waste the money. Like if you don't want to be there, like what are you doing? Because in our family, we paid for our own education. So like this was me spending savings to do this. And so I dropped out. And the first thing I did was I went to my mom and I said, okay, this is what I'm doing. She's like, great, I want to retire. Can you just manage the business? She's like, I've been waiting for you to get to this conclusion on your own for far too long. Please
Oh,
come do this.
I love it.
And
I
so that's what I actually ended up doing in my early 20s.
Oh, that's amazing. So my husband and I had a manufacturing company and our kids were in it. They were either there like playing and drawing when they were younger to when, as they got older, we had them and paid them to package things and to do different things. And we asked for their input when we redesigned a logo. Which one do you like? They're the ones that picked the final logo. And, for whatever wisdom that was,
I love that.
But we had them involved with it and it was important. And we did imagine that we would bring them into it. When we ended up closing the business, it was a heartbreak for all of us because we knew that they would not have that opportunity. Because our at least one daughter said, "Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to step into it," because that business had been started by my husband's mother. We had bought it from her, and so we were looking forward to a third generation on that. But some things need to change once in a while. Can you share? So you started managing your mother's business, and then did you have other entrepreneurial things going on at the same time?
I did. So, my mom started the cleaning service in 91. One of the very first things that happened was my very first spring or summer break. She was like, you're coming with. And I was like, to do what? And my mother was incredibly particular about how we cleaned our clients' houses. She cleaned everybody's house as if it was her own. So she only let me do a few things. I could only vacuum and like clean bathrooms, right? I couldn't do anything fun like kitchens or dusting. And so I started working with her, cleaning houses. And when I was in my senior year of high school, I actually got exposed to a retail business. And I thought to myself, I'm going to buy this. Like, I want this. It was a specialized service a store that really had products mainly for dancers and ice skaters and gymnasts. And that was me. I grew up a dancer. I've been dancing since I was 3 years old. And so I went so far as to talk to a good family friend who was a CPA. And I was like, Patrick, how can I do this? And he looked at me and he was like, you're 18. You're not going to do this. Like, you're going to have to get a partner. He gave me all the reasons why I couldn't buy that business. And the owner was selling. She had recently been diagnosed with MS. And so she knew that she was kind of on, a timeline. She needed to move away from the business. And so he told me all the things I couldn't do. And I said to my mom, this is what I want to do. Like, will you borrow me the money to buy this business? And she was like, no, no, you're not getting into retail. That's not what we do. And I was like, we? Like, What do you mean? She was already predetermined in her mind's eye that I was going to take over the business. And so
Sure.
I didn't end up buying that, and it sold about a year and a half later, and I was so bummed. I'm so bummed. But I had always had that drive to want to lead a business into success. And when I was younger, working for my mom or taking over my mom's business felt very much like a second thought, or not like a win. It felt like almost a burden because this was the expectation of me. I am older now. I look back on that time of my life with a little bit of regret. It was a gift that my mom was actually giving me. I just didn't see it as such when I was 21.
Hmm.
But being an entrepreneur had always been a part of it, right? Like I always knew that was the goal, but for a long time I denied the fact that it was actually buying mom's business.
And I
So, and my
really,
older brother bought my dad's business. So like we
wow.
were we were in this, and I helped my brother a lot through that transition. And so like it was funny because both of my parents really had this thought that we were going to take over the businesses, but never really shared that knowledge with us until they were this close to being ready to retire.
Wow. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. I know when I was growing up, my parents, my dad did get a 2-year nursing degree when I was 5. My mother had started college and then dropped out and ended up with a really great career in bookkeeping and type of career, but she was really self-taught. She worked for somebody who taught her the ropes, and she worked for that person for 30 years, and quite frankly, still does a little bit of work as they're closing out that business now. She's in her 70s, still doing some of that work, which I think is just incredible for the same person. I
Oh, that
love
is
that,
incredible.
right? Oh, this and as a woman of faith, I'm just going to say God is so good. He just puts the right people. And I say he, I mean God, introduced my mother to this business owner at the time that my father was starting school. No, actually, it was somebody else. But, and that wasn't a good situation. But then she left the bad situation to get into the good situation because she had just enough experience from the bad situation to get into the good situation. And that carried us all the way through the rest of my growing up. Just an
Oh,
incredible story. But neither of them had finished college. So both of them told me it was this words, when you go to college, let's go look at colleges. Your cousin just graduated from college. He's the first one in our family to graduate from Gustavus or from any college, and so on and so forth. So it was just this expectation. And we can put that into our kids, but your parents didn't.
nope, they didn't. And it's funny because they were very much about letting us find our own way, even if they knew we were going to make mistakes along the way. Then I had had conversations with my dad about this, many years after this had all gone down. And he was like, he goes, he essentially said, in our family, you can't tell us what to do. We have to experience it. We're not great at taking advice, right? We have to do it and then fail and then make a different decision. He was like, so I wasn't going to waste my words. He was like, I knew eventually you'd come around to it. And I was like, yeah, but I spent all this money on college. And he was like, yeah, and better for you. He goes, you did get something out of it. He was like, you didn't graduate, but you learned. He's like, you met new people. He was like, it wasn't wasted money. He always wanted to reiterate to me that it's not wasted money. Don't look at it just because you didn't get the degree as wasted. But I was like, you could have told me. And I said the same thing to my mom. And my mom was like, you wouldn't have listened to me even if I'd have said anything.
Well, I'm going to say something about that because I was just looking at my YouTube statistics recently and who is watching this show on YouTube. And I was surprised that the largest number of people are actually under the age of 35, where I expected it would be a little bit different demographics. So, what we do know as moms, but also as entrepreneurs and from our own life experiences, yeah, there's a period of time in there, let's say from 15 to 25, that we don't listen. It doesn't matter what our parents say. We are either going to pretty much oppose them or not listen to them and go our own way anyway. So your parents were very wise. I can't say I've always been as wise with my kids. Ask
Well,
them.
I was the last of five.
Sure. Right.
So they had been through this a few times. I always like to refer to as I think they were a little beaten down. Like my older brothers kind of put them through the ringer. So by the time they got to me, they were like, we're just gonna let this one flourish on her own. We're We're not going to intercede.
Yeah. No, parenting, if you're a parent and you have children, find a mentor. I had mom mentors. In fact, my hairstylist, and she should forgive me because I had to miss an appointment. Oh, I broke my leg in December and I just could not get there. But my hairstylist has been my mom mentor as well. She had two daughters, 4 years older than mine.
Oh,
And
how
so
perfect.
as I'd go, I'd be like, okay, so this is what's going on. And she's like, yeah, I remember, this is, and then she just is so wise. I had another mom mentor within my church where her son was a little bit older than my kids. So as it came up, like, oh wait, how do I throw this party for confirmation, or how do I set this up for graduation? I had somebody in my own neighborhood that had just done it.
What a
So
blessing.
yes, find a parenting mentor, as in business mentorship as well. So you started out working for your mom. You eventually bought this company from your mom, but I think you've expanded and done some other things as well.
Having the cleaning business was great, but it didn't present, there was nothing of curiosity in there. I had started to buy out my competitors. We were growing, and the business seemed boring to me because I'd actually been working in it since I was like 11 years old.
Yeah.
So, it was almost second nature, and it wasn't tickling my brain. I was bored. I found myself really delegating a ton of tasks because I just didn't really want to be there.
Mm.
So I started to think about what else it is I could be doing. And I had magically, thank God, run into somebody who was a Pilates instructor and really wanted to open gyms. She had worked with other people to open gyms. It hadn't worked out. And I was like, oh, I would love to do this. As a gym rat myself at the time, I was very into group fitness. I was working out every day at the gym by my house. And so we were in the parking lot of this gym. She was the one who had taught the class. And I just thought to myself, I could do this. Like, we could open a gym. Like, why not? And so that's when I went down the route of fitness, and I opened two gyms, and loved running them because it was totally different. It piqued my curiosity. It gave me something new to learn, a new industry, new people. What I didn't expect to have happen was that I wouldn't actually like it. So I get heavily invested in this business. I put in all this time, put in all the work. Um, and then I look around and I'm like, I'm not a gym rat. I'm not, I don't, I'm not connecting with these people. I could connect with the clients, but I couldn't connect with the people that were actually working in the gym.
Yeah.
And so I sold it back to the investors
Mm.
after just a few years. And that was a learning moment for me because I realized that just because I can do it doesn't actually mean I should, because it didn't bring me any enjoyment. And it was hard because I felt like I was quitting.
Mm.
And I had never done that before. I learned so much in those 3 years. We started that business from scratch. And I hadn't really done that on large scale before. When I bought my mom's business, I was buying an already established entity. I was just making it better. Didn't have to start it from scratch. We started the gym from scratch. And so that was a really big learning lesson. After I sold the gyms back to the investors, I really took a break and decided that I needed to find something else to fulfill this curiosity in my brain.
Yeah.
So I started inventing things. I wrote a book. Um, I decided that's when I got into business consulting because I thought with all this knowledge I have, I really need to share it. And so then I got into doing business consulting, and I flew all around the United States and Canada and helped businesses fix what was going on, which, spoiler alert, most of the time somebody was embezzling money, and that's why the business wasn't working. So much of that job was me being like, so you didn't notice that there's $80,000 missing? Which was another lesson on top of itself. So I've done that. Plus, I've done, I don't know how many MLMs, right? Like, I am the person that if you pitch me an MLM, I'm going to be like, let's go, because I totally think I can do it. So, like, at one point in my life, I've been a Mary Kay consultant. I think I did Airbond for a hot minute. I did Melaleuca because those things really piqued my interest because I'm like, I'm already using the products. I might as well sell them, right? So I always tell people, like, please don't come to me with those because you'll probably hook me.
Yeah. So I did Mary Kay as well. When my daughters started using makeup, I'm like, okay, now we got three people that are using makeup. Let's go. Let's like if we can get this at a discount, this would be great. And I no longer and I never really took it very far. I also do really appreciate, people call it MLM, people call it direct sales, people call it network marketing, in part because they just want to get away from MLM, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But it really, for many people, it is a really great introduction to business. In fact, I became aware of John Maxwell because of direct sales. When I started working, so if you don't know, I love my coffee, so do you. And this is a mushroom coffee. Mushroom coffees now are all the rage. And I don't know if it's because of me, but it's all over my feed. And
It's definitely because of you.
yeah, I drink it. I've been drinking this particular one for 9 years. The company's been around for 20 years. And it's so it's really literally the OG, which is funny because of the name of the company. But if you want more information, you can go to whyilovemycoffee.com and learn more. Now, it is a direct marketing company, but I also appreciate that, like Melaleuca and some of the others, I don't have to recruit. You don't have to become a reseller. You can just buy the coffee, and the coffee by itself is a good value. It's so good. It tastes so good. And I was going to ask you, behind one of your shoulders, it says Higher Ground Consulting Group, which is obviously the name of your business. Ground, though, does it have anything to do with coffee? Does it?
It should, but it didn't. I like your take way better. I do love good
I
coffee.
I was like, oh, maybe it's related. Maybe she's just wanted to work it in there. Yeah, I love funny names. I've started as a private money broker, and my first thought to creating my new LLC was like, okay, I live in the city of Savage. My last name is Lyon. I'm going to create the Savage Lion Private Money Group or whatever. And I ran it past a few people. They're like, no, absolutely not. 100% no.
It
Nobody is
does sound
going
very aggressive.
yeah, nobody's gonna get money from you, and nobody's gonna get the joke. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I changed it.
I love that play on words, though. I actually think that's a great name. You need to find another way to use Savage
Yeah.
Lion.
Well, another thing you said is you never really lose the money you put into things, even if you're renting. Well, renting maybe, but if you but if you pay your mortgage, and even if your house never really gains traction, never really increases in value, which has happened rarely, you still would have been paying rent somewhere.
You gotta
So
live.
if you live in your same house and it doesn't increase in value, you get out of it what you put into it. You still lived there for however long you lived there. When I put money into like developing an app at one point, I put thousands into it. I didn't end up with an app, and I put that squarely on me. I didn't put the time and the energy into it, but I learned a lot about developing an app. I also realized, and again, this is for me divine, I would have made a big mistake developing that app the way I was developing it. Now I am more ready to create the right app. So I paid my tuition to make that learning happen. And real estate, last one here. When I went into real estate, I thought, oh, I'm going to love this. And I almost immediately did not. I'd spent 90 hours getting my license. I'd gone through all the testing, one test twice, because Minnesota is a really tough state to get your license in. And then I didn't love it. But I didn't want to give up the license, and I'm so glad I didn't, because now as a private money lender, it all comes full circle. So trust your instincts is would be my take. Trust your instincts on whether you actually just push it aside or hang on to some piece of it, like Erin did also with what she learned through the gym. How do you want to add on to that, Erin?
The experience of starting something from scratch and getting to the end and realizing that it's actually not what you thought it was is probably one of the best lessons I've ever had in life. It was also the first business where I had to go out and find funders. I had to have investors. And the process of doing a slide deck, really narrowing down what your business is doing. Again, that wasn't something I had to do before because I bought it. Was a process that I learned to love. So that's one of the things that I help people do is get through that process of how do you find investors? How do you get so crystal clear on your idea that you can actually sell it to somebody else? I honed that. So even though it wasn't the outcome I thought, I gained so many skills in those 3 years. So I am very grateful for the time that I had there, but I'm also very grateful that I don't own the businesses anymore. You
Right.
can be grateful for both.
Yeah, and when I came back into the private money side of real estate, I thought, well, I could just be a listing agent. And then I took a look at even what listing agents do, and I thought, I'm just going to stay on as a referral agent. I will give the referral to somebody who loves doing that and make a little on the side and go off and work with the number side of it. I was a math teacher. So I love the number side of it and I'm a connector. So I love finding the investor and putting the loan together and finding the right home and working connecting people, totally my jam.
I love that. I love that you're able to take those two passions and mold them together. That's just amazing. That is rare. That doesn't always get to happen in life. So I love when that does happen for people.
Uh, well, you tell us a little bit more about Higher Ground Consulting Group. We've learned a little bit here and there, but as we're wrapping up the show, tell us a little bit more about it and how
Yeah.
maybe the
So,
decision to do it and what you love most
yeah.
about it.
What I love most about what I do is the satisfaction I get from actually making meaningful change in people's lives, right? Like so many entrepreneurs are overwhelmed, their brains are underfed,
Mm.
and being able to walk somebody from like the brink of burnout or even in active burnout out of that process is incredibly rewarding. And I love being able to share all of the things that I found out the hard way because I don't take advice well, because especially when I was younger, I was adamant on doing it my way. There's a lot of lessons that came out of that. And I love being able to share that so people don't have to take the long way. You can be productive and you can be better. And I love walking people through that. One of the things that I do that's a little bit unique is that I graduate people from my program. You're here to learn something and then you move on, right? Like you can always come back to me, you can always ask me questions. We create a relationship. But at the end of the day, I'm here to walk you through graduating so that you can run your life in a manner that isn't going to make you want to pull your hair out. And I love the people I get to meet. I too am a connector, but I love meeting other entrepreneurs and hearing their stories because each one of us is unique, and that piques my curiosity. And so I keep coming back to coaching because I love meeting people and I love being able to make a real impact in their business life. It's very gratifying for me. So.
And that is actually goes back to how we originally met was through a networking organization where I know you still pour into so many entrepreneurs every single week. And I think that's lovely. Likewise, I am the chair of a group called Trustegrity that just meets once a month where we work with experienced entrepreneurs. It's so rewarding to pour into groups like that. And likewise, when you applied to be the speaker, I noticed that in my sailing system, I noticed that you checked all the boxes that your specialty is in that launching, integrating and adapting, navigating the storms, and then ultimately getting to that growth, which is not an end. It actually cycles people often right back to what's their next idea what and testing it out with people again. So I love that people can graduate through the sailing system, but there isn't an end. And to your point, your people don't end when they graduate with you either.
They don't. And that's the beautiful part is that a lot of times I've been doing this long enough now that I have clients that, worked with me heavily for a year and a half and then have gone on to do other things and I get to watch them blossom,
Ugh,
right? And I've had them come back to me like I do like crisis management and change management. And so like they'll come to me with a problem they have because they outgrew their britches. Right. And so I love when that happens because I
ugh.
can see them actively working what I taught them, and there's just no better gift. There really isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I just recently also heard in another group was, there's a reason. If you want to go to the top of a mountain, there's a reason not to get airlifted to the top and drop you down on top of the mountain. I haven't actually researched this, but I think you might just die because the lack of oxygen, your inability to acclimate maybe to the weather and the conditions at the top of a mountain really seriously would be terrible. It takes 7 days to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And the seventh day, you go 1 mile and it takes 8 hours because you're so depleted. But you have to go that 1 mile. You have to take the 8 hours or you don't see the sunrise at the summit. And you're only allowed to be there for 20 minutes. Then you have to go back down the mountain.
Oh,
And it takes
wow.
1 day to return down. Now, I'm not saying we want to, I haven't figured out the business analogy of going down the mountain, but I do know that it's hard to push through sometimes to see that final step and that final stage that you feel is a final stage, but ultimately it's maybe just leading you to your next mountain.
Yeah. And it's okay to take a walk down the mountain because that should be your rest and restore.
Yeah.
That should be your moment of breath, right? Like so many times we get to the top of the mountain and we're like, okay, I'm here. What's next? Where's the next mountain? You need to take a breath. You need to take time to look back and go, what went well? What didn't go well, right? That reflection time as entrepreneurs, we miss that. I know I missed it for a good decade, but it is so important. You can refine yourself and your systems so much by just reflecting.
Well, I'm not shocked that this ends up being one of my longer podcasts. I'm not shocked at all because it's so much fun to talk with you. I can't wait to hear more as you pour in at the summit and so forth. At the last, though, for somebody that is either a struggling entrepreneur right now or they've really thought about becoming an entrepreneur, what word of advice do you have for them?
Do it. You only live once. And so you'll have a lot of people that tell you, "Oh, that's too hard." Or though you'll have people that'll say, "Oh, that's going to take too much money and too much time." You'll have all these naysayers in your world. Do it. Find the strength, pray about it, journal about it. For most people, it is a life-changing event for the better.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Erin. Really appreciate you being here today.
Yes, thank you.
And for our audience, thank you for joining us on the show Beyond the Business Plan to unleash your joyful business potential. Remember, entrepreneurship is a voyage you can take with others. So find your tribe for the journey and give us a like, subscribe, or whatever you do on your favorite podcast or video platform to keep shining and aligning with your purpose and with Joyminder Solutions. Then come on back every week for our new inspiring episode. And until then, I'm Lyon, your Chief Joy Officer, signing off. Keep spreading the joy, keep leading with heart, and I will catch you on the next wave of sales. Hey, sales setters, want to navigate your success with ease? Download the Sailing System, your practical guide to charting a course, setting goals, and growing with purpose. Find it now at joyminder.com or check the show notes below for your roadmap to results. Thank you for sailing with us, sales setters. Remember, your journey goes beyond the business plan. So keep charting your own course, leading with heart, and tuning in for more joy and inspiration. Find all the resources and connections in the show notes below, and your support means the world to us. So join our conversation at #JoyMinder or simply share your favorite takeaways in the comments section below. Until next time, set your sails for success.